What is up, Generation Orange family? It is another Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central, and we are your co-hosts, Sean Ringrose, and
Segovia, what's going on, guys? Long time no see.
it's been a while. I saw somebody earlier followed again for oh man, he's been following for 7 months, 4 days, 22 hours. That's impressive right there, El Pinche Nugget. So obviously there's a little chat going on right now. A conversation about the red card to Seren. Was that a red card or was it a little harsh? Sound off in the comments on the chat. We want to know your opinion on that for sure. We got a ton of stuff to talk about. Obviously, not just the fact that it's been a while, but also the fact that the Dynamo are in the situation they are in. That situation would be that we have not won in what is it like 9, 10 matches now? We're at 11 matches. I don't know. I've lost track. It's so many matches.
I think the last time they won is the last time he came on. Uh,
Maybe that. I don't know if I'd go that far. Might be
maybe,
true,
maybe
but
even longer. Who knows?
yeah, I don't know. It's been a while.
Hey,
But
but
if that's the case, are you trying to insinuate that it's our fault that they haven't won because we haven't had another show since then?
and I mean, if you're gonna tell me every time I put on a show they're gonna win, then trust me, I'll be here every week, every Sunday. I mean, every
All right, Mark,
Wednesday.
it's on you. It's all you just put it all on yourself right now.
Whoa. If they Saturday they win, and next Wednesday we're on. Sure.
Y'all heard it. Y'all heard it. Y'all heard it. Every Wednesday, as long as they win.
As long as they keep winning. Hey,
Woo.
but before we get on with the show, Sean, if you allow me a little bit of time, I just want to give a shout out to all those who made the trip to Austin last week. Obviously the result didn't come out the way we wanted. Dynamo fought hard, even though they were down a man, like we mentioned in the chat. 3-2 lost to Austin FC, but shout out to the guys from the Surge, Bataillon, and obviously Texanian Army out there representing Sergio, Jeff, Kenny, the two Georges, Georgie, obviously. Just all of y'all, man. If I forgot y'all, obviously y'all know. Shout out to you as well. But yeah, man, it was a great time. Had a great time in Austin. For a little bit of time that we were there. It would have been even better if it would have been with a W.
Yeah, man, watching that game at home was hard enough. I was work busyness and other stuff going on. But watching that game at home was rough. You guys were loud. Y'all were definitely holding it down for sure. We could hear you multiple times throughout the broadcast. That was good. That was nice, especially considering Austin pay their supporters group members to actually attend matches and try to be loud. And yet y'all were louder
Yeah.
after paying substantial amounts of money to even be at that match.
Yeah, man. It's funny because I know we were going through some couple rounds of alcoholic beverages, and I know George went down to go get his round, right, and he came back and told us, man, some of the guys that just came into the stadium, they're like, man, it's never been this loud. What's going on? And it's obviously obviously all the Houston Hustle Town supporters and all that stuff that made the way up to Austin. I think we showed a lot of pride for the fact that even though we know the result wasn't what we wanted, but we showed a lot of pride and we kind of showed what it means to be a supporter, and especially with this so-called rivalry that they're trying to create with us in Austin. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think we really set the bar high as far as visiting supporters here in Texas. So, I think we did a really good job.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it was noticeable on the broadcast. I'm glad to hear that the Austin fans in their own stadium even started to, were acknowledging and noticing that it was louder than normal. That's what the away support brings when it's a local match. We try to bring that to Frisco and gonna bring it to Austin again come October 24th, I believe is the next Austin match in Austin itself. And hopefully those results will be different than they were this time. But beyond that, there's a number of topics to discuss. Obviously, all of them dealing with the Dynamo right now. But before we get into that, one thing I want to do real quick is I do want to shout out the Dash ladies, especially our Canadian women who went out and won the gold at the Olympics. That's Alyssa Chapman, Nichelle Prince, and Sophie Schmidt. Of course, ex Dash members as well, Aaron McLeod and Jake, I'm sure will chime in, or somebody else will chime in. Who the other one is that I can't think of off the top of my head that was Canadian, Janine Becky, who was another Canadian national team, women's national team player. They went out and they did what they needed to do against a very very good um,
Swedish.
Sweden team, yeah. And you know what? They beat the U.S., which in and of itself was a huge accomplishment for them. Put the U.S. into the third place match. The U.S. did thankfully win that at least to keep to medal. But man, that was pretty crazy stuff. So besides that, though, let's move on from that. Dash have been playing. We're not going to get into that tonight. Too much going on. So let's run through a few different questions, Mark. First of all, and this one is has to be the first question I think we have to ask for the night. But let's be real for a second. Does this team actually suck, or is there something else going on behind the scenes that we don't see?
Man, it's a weird component going on the pitch, man, because obviously we see the team, striving and working hard and running at the pitch and running after the ball and trying to win 50-50 balls and things of that nature. Then, it's one of those things where the talent that you put on the pitch can only take you so far depending on how high that talent level is. And I think the fact of the matter is the talent level of the squad isn't at anywhere near what we hoped it would be, to be honest. And the team, honestly, I mean, they're doing everything they can. I mean, as far as they can possibly can, I mean, physically and talent wise. And it's just a shame that they're not able to pull out results, positive results. I mean, now I know we had that little bit of a streak where we just tying and we became Dynamo, but obviously now we're on a two maybe I think 3 game losing streak. I don't remember right now, but which is an unfortunate thing as well, and we're not looking good at all. So I mean, I can sit here and argue both ways, but I'm gonna take the part where we suck. We kind of we the team sucks. I mean, something's not clicking. The chemistry just isn't there where it needs to be at. Aside from maybe a handful of players, who are really showing their quality. I mean, it's a shame that a USL signing that we had this past offseason is our best player this season, and he's only played less than half the games. He's only been available to us less than half the games. But he's our second leading scorer. I think he's tied, if not, he has the most assists in the team. And we're obviously talking about Tyler Pasher. So and it's a shame, Maxio Riti. I mean, obviously he's scoring goals when he gets an opportunity to be out there. Obviously, he's been out with COVID situation and things of that nature. But yeah, man, I just feel that the talent isn't there, and we're basically getting the results based on the talent that we have on the pitch. So I mean, they're doing whatever they can, and obviously whatever they can do isn't good enough at this level.
I saw somebody post this in another Discord. Y'all know the Surge Discord. I don't need to stumble around it, but I saw somebody post in there that um, it's more of a case that the Dynamo have players that wouldn't start on top level MLS clubs at this point. You look at a Darwin Seren, he's a guy that San Jose were more than willing to give up. You look at a guy like Corey Baird that we just brought in, and he was a backup, not even able to get minutes at that point, really. You look at even when we brought Christian Ramirez in, that guy was a backup. He was not a starter. A Rudy, not a backup, not a starter. Tyler Pasher in USL coming in, like you said, best player on the team right now. I don't think there's any question about that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit because there is some information that I would like to share with people that don't know already as far as his situation. But Pasher probably not coming back anytime soon. Just be aware, injury wise. But you look at Fafa Pico, another player that was relegated basically to the bench for the team that he was playing for at the time. You look at Tim Parker; he was a starter, but he was kind of, we had to pay a lot of extra money to get him in here. You look at Zarek Valentine, he wasn't a starter any longer in Portland. They had brought in somebody else to replace him at right back, Omar Bravo.
You know,
Um, Go ahead.
it's one of those things, where you go and acquire a player who's on the cusp of making a first team or whatever, or let's say they have too much talent on that one position at a team, so that's why you acquire somebody. But like the names you just mentioned, these players were bench players.
Yep.
Let's get that right. No, the reason they got minutes at their prior team was because either the starter was out on international duty, injured, or just not available to that team. You know, these players are made available for whatever reason because they were just not needed for that squad. And they're players that those teams, those clubs easily replaced. Later on. Obviously you always hope to when you make these trades or when you make these acquisitions that you come out with the upper hand. But too many times that I care to count, the Dynamo have fallen victim.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna use the word victim to
Sure.
these trades and acquisitions. I mean, not, and we're not just talking about just trading Gam and Tam to get Corey Barrett or Christian Ramirez or whatever. But I mean, even trades when it's swap players. I mean, you see the last year with the Victor Cabrera, Romel Kyoto trade. Even though Kyoto was toxic, we needed to get him out. But the fact that we were only able to get Victor Cabrera, who only played maybe 10 games for us in his Dynamo career, shame about Romel Kyoto before his injury is over there killing it in Montreal. And again, the same team, Montreal. I mean, they went in and acquired Kiki Struna, and we're here thinking, man, thank you for taking Kiki Struna from us. But now Kiki's out there doing it as a defender. So maybe it's not the player personnel. You know, maybe we're sitting here blaming the wrong people. Um, and maybe we're looking at it the wrong way because obviously these players are doing their thing in other places once they leave the Dynamo. You see Christian Ramirez, what he's doing in Scotland.
Yeah, okay. Now I'm going to stop you right now. Trying to applaud Christian Ramirez for scoring goals in the Scottish Premier League is the equivalent of trying to applaud a guy who just went from MLS to USL Third Division.
I'm
It's a
not, well,
little
I'm
bit
not,
it's a little bit of a downgrade for the guy. So
yeah,
yes, I'm glad to see that he's scoring. Don't get me wrong. Hold on. Glad to see he's scoring, don't get me wrong, but trying to say that, look at how well he's doing now that he's left the Dynamo. It's a little bit of a misnomer because he's going to a much easier to score in league that is not nearly as strong defensively as the MLS is.
I
Continue.
mean, you can say that. You can say that, and you might be correct. I mean, but it's one of those things where he goes somewhere else, a fresh new start, and he finally scoring boots. He was supposed to be the one to take over from Morrow,
Well, that's
but obviously, you know, if you don't surround your number nine with players who can deliver him the ball and get him the ball and give him the opportunity and all those other things, I mean, it makes it hard. Oriti, like I said, Oriti, obviously he surprised me with the 6 goals that he scored up to this point. But I mean, in all honesty, how many games have the Dynamo played already? I'm about to get to 20 games, right? If not over that already. And for our highest score to only have 6 goals, that's poor quality. That's poor quality. The simple fact that we don't have a double digit score by this time, it sucks and it's horrible because you could say, oh man, we're scoring by committee, but we're not really. Aside from Maxi, Pasher has 3, and everybody else has two or less. So it's nobody's taking control of the fact that we need to put the ball in the back of the net, and that's just made due to the poor quality that we have all around the pitch. We don't have the players with enough talent to take on defenders 1v1. They're too scared to take them on. They don't do the things necessary to make the extra pass or to get the ball in control. Why don't these forwards or these front three of ours hit the ball on the first touch? Try that sometimes. That's something that soccer players should be able to do. Hey, if the ball comes your way, instead of holding it down, hit it with the first touch, man. You never know, and just it doesn't happen. No, it doesn't happen. So it's maybe the Dynamo are what they are, and they're playing to the maximum capabilities of their talents on the pitch, and we're just over expecting way too much for these guys.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's a lot to unpack there. You know, a couple of comments from the chat here. You've got Pat, aka Bob Shafto, talking about Bruin, how when he left the Dynamo, he became better with Seattle. I think that's a fair point. Though he was relegated from being the starter in Seattle to being a bench player in Seattle, a super sub, which I think fits him a lot better, especially at his age, especially on a astroturf type surface. And then of course you've got the joke there from Nugget talking about Wando and Oduro and Jason Johnson went to Chicago, another player. You had Kai Kamara who's been all over the place. You know,
But you know,
Tommy McNamara went and scored for New
yeah.
England recently a couple
You
of
know what's funny
times.
about the Bruins situation, Sean? You know, just because that's the one that Pat mentioned. You
Hmm.
know, obviously you speak of him about being a super sub and all this stuff. So you know, he's played literally less minutes as a Seattle Sounder than he has as a Dynamo, right? Because obviously he's a substitute now. But he's almost up there with the same amount of goals as he had as a Dynamo as he as a Sounder. But you know why? Because goals for him are a lot easier
Hmm.
because there's a lot more talent around him distributing him the ball, making it easier for him to score. You know,
Yeah.
It's that simple. You surround a guy with talent that can a number nine. It makes it easier for a number nine to score goals if he's a legit number nine, which we all know well Bruin is. You know, when there's good wingers around him or a good number 10 that's able to distribute him the ball.
Yeah, absolutely when it comes to Bruin, but it's interesting to me. There are players on this roster that have been here for a while. I'm thinking specifically of a Darwin Surin who's been here 3 seasons or 4 seasons at this point. He's been through multiple coaches, and he
Uh-huh.
feels like last year or 2 years ago was kind of him starting to show what he had to offer, and then last year he kind of tapered off, and then this year he's had moments, but like good moments, but he's also had really bad moments. And then you have guys like Memo Rodriguez, who he's been with the team since effectively since day one of his career. When he got promoted from the academy, went and played with RGV for a bit, and then finally got some starts and showed tons of promise. But then at the same time, you kind of saw what his athletic ceiling was going to be in terms of his pace and his capabilities. And I feel like he's played, at that level, for this whole season in terms of there's a definitive ceiling of what we have with Memo. My question, I guess, for you at this point is when it comes to Memo, is there any further to go, or is that truly a definitive ceiling? Is this the Memo that we should expect moving forward? The kid that has a maximum of 2 goals across 15 matches started, 18 matches played. He's got 40 shots and he has 2 goals. Is that the
Just
memo that we should come to expect playing for the Dynamo?
yeah, honestly, I think his peak, he's already past his peak. I mean, this is what it is. You know, I think it's more downhill from here on out. You know, depending on how Tab decides to continue playing him. You know, obviously we know Memo on the wing is non-existent. Um, I've always been a component of, dude, Memo's physicality and athleticism is nowhere near top notch. So why don't you use that and make him a super sub where he can really dominate against players who are tired. You know, you give him the last 15, 20 minutes of a game where he can come out and really do some damage, capable to his physical abilities and his talent. I mean, look, when he was with Wilmer and Wilmer used him as a super sub, he came in and he made plays happen. That's what made us excited about Memo. The fact that he came in as a super sub and made plays happen. Went 1v1 against defenders because defenders were tired and he had the pace and prowess to go do that. Be able to go and take the shot because that's what he was brought in for the last 15 minutes to create something. Giving Memo a full match or being a starting 11, it's just bad news for the Dynamo. And the fact that we have Memo Rodriguez as an option, for starting 11 spot, that just shows the level of talent that we have for the Dynamo. No disrespect to player, not no disrespect to Memo. We all love Memo. You know, obviously his story is really great. And obviously we honestly know why he's put so much in forward by the Dynamo because he is that academy player that graduated from the academy and now he's a first teamer and they wanna showcase him that to others who are thinking about joining the academy that it can be done. That's great. But at the end of the day, I don't care about that story anymore. I care about this team getting better, making the playoff push, and becoming a contender down the line. And we're nowhere near that. Nowhere near that. And it's a shame.
Yeah, and I think you look at a team like a Seattle or an SKC, teams that are leading the league right now. Traditionally they're bringing players through their academy system, and bringing
Philadelphia.
them up. They've had multiple classes of kids from different age groups that have come through and have proved themselves to be MLS worthy. And I guess my question coming out of that is, where is the disconnect that's happening? I mean, we've got players that clearly at the academy level have the talent and the capability, and they've proved it in the last few seasons in particular. But where is the throughput on that? Are we looking at another 2 to 3 seasons, another 3 to 5 seasons? Are we looking at, you know, we need to bring
Let
those
me ask you
players
this.
back in? Go ahead.
Let me ask you this, Sean. This is the question I pose to you. You know, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the academy has talented players. You know, I think that we have, if given the opportunity, that we can have a Philadelphia Union situation here where we have one or two or maybe even three players come out from the academy and are able to produce better than what we have on the first team right now. The thing is, where are the balls in the coaching staff or in the front office to allow these players to come in? Obviously, yes, the team and the club are feeling the pressure of the fact that the club hasn't made the playoffs, and the fans are restless, and we're annoyed and agonized and antagonized, to be honest, to the point where we're like, it sucks, man. It really sucks. But where is that coach? Where is that leadership to the point where they say, you know what? I don't care that you brought that player cost that much. I'm going to see what this young 17, 18-year-old can do in the same position. I'm pretty sure he can do at least up to par what you're doing at this moment, because this club has not shown anything from the number 9 to the number 2 to the number 5 to the number 6 position, whatever position you want to throw out there. Nobody in this club has done anything any better than I think an academy player can do at this moment. To be honest, you know, for as much, like I said, the best player up to this point has been Pasher. He's only played what 8 games, and he's done really well. Aside from him, everybody else, dude, find me the best academy player that you have for that position, and let's give him a game. I want to be like Seattle a couple of weeks ago, where it was Raul Ruidiaz and like 10 academy players. Let's do that, because at the end of the day, if that team loses, it's no different than what's going on right now. So I mean, realistically, everybody wants to like, oh, we're turning the corner. We're that much closer. We're uniting as a team. Dude, I must be blind, or I must be seeing something totally different on this pitch, because I don't see anything like that. I'm not seeing no chemistry. I'm not seeing no continuity. I'm not seeing no improvement. I'm not seeing any of that. So, I mean, am I seeing something wrong, Sean? I mean, if I am, let me know, because I feel like I'm watching the same game as everybody here, everybody on the chat, everybody else in America. I mean, this team sucks. Plain and simple. I mean,
That's an
Sean.
that,
I
it's
mean,
an
Sean.
interesting. Go ahead.
Like I said, my question to you, dude. I mean, like, I mean, when is somebody gonna have the balls to go and say, you know what? Let's go play these academy players, because at the end of the day, at this moment, I feel like we're not gonna make the playoffs. I feel like we're gonna end up in last place in the Western Conference again before we make the playoffs.
So there's a couple of layers to that question. First of all, you know, uh, I want to touch actually on what you just said related to, your expectation at this point, or kind of perception of how we're going to finish out the season. Look,
Breaking news.
the say that again.
Breaking news.
Oh,
Um, Atlanta United has signed Gonzalo Pineda for to be the next coach
Yeah, that we
of the
saw that
season.
coming like 5 days ago. Get out. You're
Well, not
so
me. I
far
mean, but
behind the news.
it's confirmed now. It's confirmed.
No, I know, but that was as soon as they started targeting him, you knew it was going to happen. Um, so yeah, so here's the thing. Sergio says it I think pretty well. Winless in 11 is embarrassing, and most other clubs would have made a change by now. That's the look. Atlanta did make a change. They showed their, and this is the second year in a row that they've sacked their coach partway through the season. And this to me is the difference between clubs that are successful in MLS and clubs that are not successful in MLS. Look, the majority of clubs that are successful in MLS are not cycling coaches year over year. That's just the truth of the matter. They're not. However, if you have a coach that is not succeeding and you continue to invest in that coach and you're not seeing improvement on the pitch, that's a different situation. And look, there was a good friend of mine, Hal Kaiser, who he's covered for the Dash and covered for the Dynamo before for Keeper Notes and other various publications, Orange in the Oven, and otherwise. He and I have talked about this numerous times, but he always comes back to me, and it's always something that I have to stop and think about. But one key point that he makes is that you have to consider the fact that Tab came in, as much as I applauded and lauded the move to bring Tab in, Tab came in with no professional coaching experience in terms of a professional team. He came in as a youth national team director and coach, and he understood what it takes to win at the international level. But it's not the same as as a coach that's coming in with experience from MLS or a coach coming in with experience from internationally. Uh, Cute little mascot. It's a coach that you're bringing in, and we invested so much time and so much money in trying to help him succeed. And look, we've spent more money this season than we've spent in previous seasons, and yet we're still not seeing the improvement that you expect from bringing in better players. Look, Karaskia, there's no doubt that Karaskia is a better player than the players that are that are on the pitch in front or would have been in front of him. Your Derek Jones or even your Boniat Garcia. Or I would even argue your Darwin Saren. Memo, I would even say he's better than Memo Rodriguez coming in on his very first match of the few minutes that we got to see him. Karaskia is he's built different. And yet at the same time, it took us until midway through the season to make that move. Now, what impact is that move going to have long term? Is that move going to be one that does propel the Dynamo forward? I'm of the opinion it does not matter who we bring in for the remainder of this season. This team is not going to succeed. I can't believe I'm going to say this, with Tab as coach, period. End of the story. His system no longer works in MLS. His desire to run players into the ground with this high press for 90 minutes is not working with the fitness level of the players. And clearly, our fitness and conditioning coach and fitness and conditioning manager are incapable of getting our players into a fitness regime or fitness level that adheres to what Tab wants. And look, Darwin Quintero I have knocked him numerous times for having that attitude of, I'm who I am, play me as I expect to be played. But there's also a caveat to that, which when he is on the pitch, he is one of your most creative players. With that said, he's been obviously dispossessed numerous times when he's been on the pitch, and he's not showed to be that great of a player this season in particular. I think a lot of that stems from the attitude and being pissy at the coach. But I have to say, and I have to point to the fact that as bad as Tab has been, as bad of a coach as his record is, everyone wants to point to the GM and the previous ownership that, look, they didn't give him enough assets to be successful. And I argue that with the point of, it doesn't matter what the quality of your assets were. I don't look at the end result in terms of where were we in the table. I don't, as weird as it sounds right now, given the state of the team, I don't care about that. What I want to see is year over year growth in development of players and growth and development of the team. And what I am seeing right now is, if it wasn't for Pasher, if it wasn't for the induction right now of Karaskia into the lineup, if it wasn't for bringing in Tim Parker, this team would be in complete shambles. And it's using the exact same tactical approach we had last season with the same players.
You know
So
what's sad?
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if that's the case, I have to turn back and look at Tab. Honestly, take a hard look at Tab and go, look, as much as I like you as a person, as much as I thought you fit what we wanted, you have not succeeded at what we've asked you to succeed at. You have not improved these players that we've brought in to get better. If anything, you've sent them away and they've gotten better elsewhere, but you're still not bringing them back in. Marcelo Palomino being a great example. Um,
You know,
it's oh, go ahead.
you know, it's one of those things where I had a conversation with some of the guys who were at Austin, and we were kind of talking about, what's going on, like why is the Dynamo not succeeding, man? And I told him, you have to look at the league in general, right? You have to look at the top teams year in, year out, which are the top teams. Obviously, you mentioned earlier, Seattle, you know, Atlanta before the champ, before after Tata, before Tata left, New England, teams like that. What are they doing as opposed to what we're doing right now? That's not comparable. Everybody else is playing an attack minded kind of soccer, while the Dynamo here with Tab, like you mentioned earlier, they're playing a holding formation. You know, last season, what the whole problem was that they couldn't make the transition from offensive to defense. That's why we were losing a lot of balls and a lot of goals were being scored on us. Counter attack, which has improved this season, yeah, obviously, but at the sacrifice of us scoring goals. We don't have no true, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have any game changers that can take over the game offensively, to go make these goals and go do what they needed to go do, because our supposedly best player, Darwin Quintero, you have an issue with that guy, and obviously he hasn't helped himself either. But I mean, you sat that guy on the bench, a guy that you go and spend over $1 million to bring in from Argentina. It's 8 minutes a game, if that, you know, um, it's mismanagement, man. Mismanagement to the umpteenth level. I mean, you got to think about the fact that all these teams that have done great: Columbus Crew, Seattle Sounders, Toronto FC, New England Revolution. They all have one thing in common: they have game changers. They have number 10. Tab does not believe in number 10, a number 10 player. Like you said, Sean, I mean, for like I said, when they announced Tab, I was happy too. I'm not gonna lie. He brought in this pedigree. He brought with him knowledge of players that played with him that did really well under him in the U.S. youth camps and things like that. That could possibly bring him over to the Dynamo, which he has. But the fact of the matter is that the brand of football he plays is not helping at all. Not helping at all, because we don't have the type of players offensively to be able to take over the game, while we're over here sacrificing players to be more defensive. And it's a shame. Um, One thing about the thing, obviously when Wilmer left, sometimes we were all happy when Wilmer left, because obviously it was a kind of a downside, it was kind of toxic, the environment. But one thing about Wilmer, I think his downfall was just the fact that he didn't have enough depth, because obviously the Gold Cup finished him, because he had great starts to the season. The team just didn't have enough depth. He had an attacking brand of football, which we
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed when the Dynamo were out there scoring, by 3-4 goals and things like that. Did we like his attitude? No. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I think George mentioned in the chat, you know, you can't have a player friendly coach and have these kind of results. A player friendly coach doesn't matter if you're not winning. I'd rather my
Mm-hmm.
coach be a dick with him playing with them winning. So, that's really what it boils down to. I think the fact is that we need a whole complete overhaul. I don't think Tab is the guy, unfortunately, for that, because his system just doesn't work and is not appealing. First and foremost, it's not appealing. The fact of the matter is that you don't have players that can go 1v1 against defenders. It's a shame. Um, and then it's just not a it's not a fancy, it's not a really good brand of football. You know, I think we just need a whole revamp. New coach, new GM, and obviously see what Ted is really about, as far as spending money and bringing in quality players into the team is. But with that being said, obviously, if this season is a loss, And why aren't we playing the youth? Why aren't we playing players that can do something for us in the future?
That's a good question. I think before we dive into that, because there definitely needs to. uh, it's funny. But before we dive into that, and then Mark's just like, I'm gonna drink some cold water. It's gonna be great. Actually, he probably has some cold lemonade sitting in that Chick-fil-A cup or tea. Can't tell which. Little of A, little of B. No, I'm just kidding. But I want to touch on something, and that is, and I've seen comments from Sergio and other people in the chat related to Tab and Jordan and what have you. Look, I mean, the thing is with Jordan is you already know what you have. If he hasn't been able to figure it out in 7, 8 years, whatever number he's at right now, he's not going to figure it out over the offseason. He's not going to figure it out at the end of the season. That doesn't mean he's not bringing in reasonable talent. That doesn't mean he's not giving it a fair shake. I think he was hamstrung, obviously, under Brenner. And I think it would be different given Ted's capability to spend more money. But I think here's the thing that I look at it is we're at a point where Jordan being here for the remainder of this season is not going to change anything if you're planning to get rid of him at the end of the offseason. Doesn't matter how good the team suddenly does at the end of this season, you already know what you have in Matt Jordan. And so it doesn't benefit you to waste the time now not finding a new GM that is exactly what you want, a guy that's going to fit, let's call him a Ted Segal guy. If you're not going to go ahead and do that now, why are you going to wait till the offseason to do it? And if the answer is because you believe that there will be better ones available, let me tell you, in MLS, that is usually not the case. The only ones that are leaving MLS or have been released by their teams are ones that you don't want. Perfect example to that is FC Cincinnati right now are looking for a new GM. They just fired their GM. And one of the names being brought up by FC Cincinnati is none other than GM Matt Jordan.
Take
I
him,
I
take him,
feel so bad for Cincinnati that it's gotten to the point where they're looking at Matt Jordan as their savior.
take him, take him.
Oh no, I offered a full on trade. Like, hey, I will give you Matt Jordan. I will give you Darwin
No,
Quintero in
I
exchange
don't.
for just giving me like I don't know 500 TAM. That's all I'm looking for.
I don't even need the trade. If you want, we'll pay the plane ticket for him to go. To be honest, at this point, Kenny on the chat says season really isn't over. Just past halfway, 5 points out of playoffs. I don't think they're a playoff team, but they're still too early. I respect the optimism, Kenny. But what has this team shown you to really make you think that they're gonna make any kind of noise to at least try to make it to the seventh spot in the Western Conference? Because there's 11. What is it? 11, 12 teams in the Western Conference, and
12 teams.
eight of them make it to the playoffs. Like, dude, I mean that's complete crap that we can't make it to one of those spots.
Yeah.
We're in this situation right now. But
Eh,
but I mean, but look, man, I appreciate the optimism, and who knows, maybe you might be right and we might be wrong. I'm hoping for it, but I just don't see it. I don't see it.
No, and I agree with you. And I think you go through this many matches without a single win, both home and away, over the course of multiple international breaks, multiple breaks for other competitions, that sort of thing. And it's a struggle, it's a frustration, and that's not going to change. Even if the team starts winning a little bit, this team is not built to win consistently over the long haul. So I mentioned something earlier, and the reason I'm kind of down right now on this team is the number one player, and you've said it, Tyler Pasher. Look, he got injured in the last match, and he got injured fairly early in the last match. What I've heard, maybe Dynamo Insider can back this up, but what I've heard is we're looking at probably about 2 months, if not longer, of him being out. If he's out for 2 months, that's probably 8 or 9 matches at least that he's missing. That's over half of the remaining season.
That's our
Uh,
best player.
and that's our best player. And so I can't help but be more down about where we are right now than I am right now. Like I have been, me, those that have followed Generation Orange, those that have followed me on Twitter know that I'm by and large a very positive person. I am by and large a very I am a very eternal optimist, if it were. I will always find the silver lining in the negative and in the dark clouds. Well, right now, I'm looking at the dark clouds. I'm not talking about Minnesota United supporters group. I'm talking about the dark clouds that currently reign over BBVA Stadium. I look at the dark clouds. There is no silver lining right now. With Tyler Pasher being out again, from what I've heard, 2 months or more, with that being the case with the injury that he sustained, if he is out that long, this team does not make the playoffs, period. That is one player that your entire season basically is hinging on at this point. And yet at the same time, I don't think there's anybody in chat, anybody watching the show right now that would honestly say that if Tyler Pasher is out, this team makes the playoffs.
No, obviously that's horrible news. The fact that he's going to be out for what, 6 to 8 weeks, something like that, from what I heard.
Yep.
But in all honesty, man, if I'm Ted and I see Memo on the wing anytime again in this year, I'm firing Tab. I'm calling Tab and say, you know what? It's okay. Thank you for your service. Because and it's a shame. Like I said, obviously Pastor being our best player overall, and obviously he's been on the left wing. The fact that you have all these other wingers that are natural wingers sitting on the bench, and you're putting in Memo Rodriguez at the wing. It just goes to show how much incompetence there is on the coach staff. Like, dude, like you've tried this. You've played this song already. You've played this instrument already. It doesn't work. Do something else. Try something else. It's insanity. You're trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, which we haven't gotten. This is why we're in this 11 game unwinning streak that we've been on. And obviously it's gone worse because at least we were chuckling at Dynamo, but at least we were getting some points. Now, dude, I mean, we're losing by 2-3 goals a game now. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. And to go and see the same players run out there, like if they're able to do something different than what they did the last 5-6 matches previous, it's upsetting because there's so many other players that can be given opportunity. And I'm not just talking about Bahamich because I know a bunch of y'all probably in the back of your mind like, oh, he's going to come on another Bahamich rant. No, I'm not talking about Bahamich, but he is one of the players that I would prefer to see instead of all these other players that have done nothing. I mean, a lot of people are like, hey, well, international duties. A lot of teams have international duties. A lot of teams have international duties with better players they're losing better players, and they're still finding ways to win. They still have the depth to win, and things of that nature. But yet here we are, status quo. We accept it. We that's the we that and that's what we are as a club. We accept crap.
Look, we've been a mediocre at best team for years now. I'm going to count out probably 7 to 8 years. I mean, yeah, we had the one run into the Western Conference semifinal, against Seattle. We beat Portland in Portland in a huge match. But at the same time, the best that we have to show for the last 7 seasons is an Open Cup and then that one playoff run. And that's it. That's literally all we have to show for it. We haven't made playoffs in 7 out of 8 seasons. Or 6 out of 7 seasons, as it were. Look, we have a team. It's the best way I'm going to put it. We have a team, and there's a lot of changes that are going to be needed yet again in the offseason. So Dynamo Insider asked the question. I think this is an important one, almost more important than if we fire Tab now, who's currently on the market for new coaches. I think there's a few names out there, but I don't want to touch on that quite yet. That's towards the end of the show. So Dynamo Insider asked, do y'all see another season overhaul, and talking about the offseason now that we have Ted Bucks? Look, I don't know what Ted's approach financially is going to be. Is he going to be an owner that is more willing to spend, higher amounts of money? I can say that he has spent more money currently, but there are also players on our bench that frankly shouldn't be here. I want to see in the offseason specifically, I want to see Ted Lassiter. I was about to say Ted Lasso. Ted Segal sign off on spending money for very important players that we need in the starting lineup.
Can we get Ted Lasso as a coach?
I mean, the Dynamo would definitely be Ted Lasso's approach. Like, hey, let's go Dynamo, baby. I look at the current roster and there are holes that I see, and I've seen these same holes year over year. You know, we obviously have a hole at midfielder. I think Vera is very solid. I think Coco is very solid. My problem is when Corona's on the pitch, and I love Joe Corona. My problem is when Corona's on the pitch, he is a strictly defensive player. Vera has become more of an attack-oriented player in this forced formation, and I would be curious with Coco playing there, Carrasquilla, with him playing higher up the pitch, does that allow Vera to sit more in the middle of the midfield, so to speak, kind of that center of the spine, and then Corona kind of deeper in behind him? You know, somebody pointed out earlier that when we play this 2DM formation, we expect it to be more defensively sound, which in reality it's been more defensively sound. But the problem is both of our defensive mids are having to play box to box the entire 90 minutes. There's a reason Corona typically gets subbed around the 70th, 75th minute, 80th minute, depending on the match. There's a reason why Vera is out there literally sweating through his jersey by the 50th minute. There's a reason why Derek Jones does not play an entire match most matches. You know, it is the fact that we run our defensive midfielders box to box. That's not what most defensive midfielders want to do. They want to sit a little bit higher above the back line. They're more than content to run, 70% of the pitch. But running box to box consistently in this high press system, it exhausts your defensive
No,
midfielders. It exhausts your
and,
center midfielders. Go ahead.
and the same thing to be said. I mean, the fact is you invested a lot of money in your defense. Like I
Yeah.
said, you're going to invest almost $1 million in Tim Parker. By the way, this is looking. You teenagers on DP money at the moment. You know, Umqua was supposed to be better than Lundy. That's why you keep running him out there and left back. But I mean, I haven't seen any of that. And then obviously Valentin is supposed to be the I'm guessing the face of the franchise because I see him on every social media thing and all that good stuff out there and social media that has to do with the Dynamo. But yet we're still throwing out two sixes out there. Why are we investing so much into the defense when we invested so much on the defense from a financial standpoint? If those players are not to par and you spent that money, then you're looking like a dummy for spending that type of money on those players if they're not able to defend the ball well with 1-6, nonetheless with two. You know, I'm tired of sacrificing on the offense, man, because I mean we're just not there offensively. Fidel, what's up, man? He brings a quick question. Well, why doesn't the Dynamo invest in their youth, or is there no faith in their talent? You know, I mentioned earlier in the show. I think it's just one of those things where they're in such a man. We got to make the playoffs, man. We got to do something. We got to bring a winning mentality here, and things of that nature. But at the same time, do you throw away another season to let the youth play? At this point, I would, from my opinion, because like I said earlier, is this team, this batch of players currently haven't shown me anything to show that they're gonna make a playoff run or compete for one of those playoff spots. And to be honest, none of these players individually, aside from Pasher, has shown me that they can do any better than what's in the youth academy right now. So why not? Why not give them an opportunity? And the Dynamo Insider says teenagers achieve DP, so hopefully, yeah, we all understand that. That's fine and dandy. I mean, but you paid money, you paid a transfer fee for this guy to come over. You know, you made he's one of the best paid defenders in the league. So I mean, if that alongside with Parker, who you gave a 3-year extension to, are not it, then what are we doing? What's the squad doing? What's the team doing?
Yeah, so we've talked about that a little bit, touched on it. Let's talk about youth for a few minutes. I think it's probably a good thing to talk about. Obviously, the Dynamo have Marcelo Palomino out on loan to Charlotte FC, Charlotte Independence. You obviously have Eric McHugh, who's on loan to, I forget where he went on loan to, but he's on loan out somewhere on the East Coast. You've got other players that are out on loan as well, young
Charleston.
players.
Houston Charleston. I'm sorry.
Charleston, thank you, Charleston Battery. Yeah, East Coast, Charleston, South Carolina, in case anybody's wondering. Thank you, Christopher, as well. Appreciate that. But we've got these young players that are out there, and look, it's only 3 to 4 players in total that are out on loan, young players. We've got Danny Rios in the wings that's a forward that could play in multiple positions. Adequately enough. No worse than what we currently have as our backup. Let's put it that way. We've got other players in midfield that are coming through the academy. We've got young players. The young players is, the number of young players is not the issue. The problem is that these players, because they're being shipped off for these loans, we aren't recalling them when the player's playing well. We're just letting them stay on loan to get that year out away from the club. My problem with that is what they're learning while they're away from the club is not going to fit into Tab's system anyways. What they're going to learn is they're going to learn that club's specific approach to how they want to play, that coach's specific approach to how they want to play. So when they get back here, there's still going to be a learning curve to playing for this coach. Now, you can say the best players in the world are able to adapt to a new coach without an issue. They just play their position. The coach understands it. But there's a difference to how Tab approaches things versus how a really, really good coach would approach things, which is Tab is very much, I'm going to tell you exactly what position you're going to play. I'm going to tell you how to play it. Whereas a lot of these other coaches, they're going to look at the available players they have and they're going to slot them into positions to play their best, to give them the best opportunity to succeed. It was my same issue with Wilmer. It was my same issue with Owen Coyle. It was my same issue with Wade Barrett. It's my same issue now with Tab. Why are we continuing to play players out of position? A perfect example is Memo on the mother frickin' wing. Why has this guy continued to be trotted out on the wing? Why, oh, why, oh, why? This guy can't do anything on the wing. He can't take players on. He can't beat players off the dribble. He doesn't have the pace to beat players. He's not going to win you a ball over the top. He's going to be tenacious. He's going to be annoying. He's going to be a nuisance. But that is much better as a 10 or as even as a shadow striker at, playing up there with your true striker, whatever it is. But the position of winger for Memo is just an atrocity to me. And I fear that if the Dynamo were to recall Marcelo Palomino, Tab would try to play him in a position that's not fitting for how he wants to play and for how
No,
he plays
for
best.
sure, for sure. I mean, that's the one thing about Tab that I was kind of skeptical about when he was signed to the Dynamo. As much as I was excited because of his pedigree and all that stuff, the thing is, like you mentioned earlier in the show, he never had any professional coaching. He's never done a professional coaching job, and it's a different thing coaching youth players as opposed to coaching professional players. Youth players, they're on a come up. They're hungry. They'll do whatever you tell them to do. If you tell them run through this wall and they'll get you more minutes, this and that, they're gonna run through that wall. Professional players, they've already made it. They've done what they've done. They know their skill set. They know what they can do, what they can't do. You know. Um, Now, as a coach, as a professional coach, it's up to that coach to put those players in positions that best suits them and best produces for the team and as a whole. Put all those pieces together to make it work. It's a puzzle, you know. You're gonna have players that don't normally play wings that for once in a while might have to play a wing. And that's fine. That's okay. Injuries, call ups, and things like that happen. We understand that. But when you're forcing a player to play a position that he's not been doing any good at, then that's where we start losing faith in your ability to coach and what you're doing. And the fact, and obviously Memo being the big target here, and it's not just at him. There's other players that played positions that I'm just like, what's going on? You know, I'm not
Just
too much
say
of
it.
a
Just say it. You're like, why is Fafa still starting on the wing?
no, no,
Just
no,
say
no,
it.
no, no, no. I'm not too much of a fan of Junka playing left back, to be honest.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know, honestly, I mean, obviously everybody knows my supposedly hatred towards Fafa. I have no hatred towards any player, man.
That's
I,
not.
I,
Oh,
I don't. I don't.
oh.
I
I've
honestly
never,
don't.
I've never heard or seen you lie on the air live.
No,
But
I'm not.
friends, we have had our first
And,
instance of
and, and,
Mark
and, and you still
absolutely bold
and you
faced
still
telling you a
haven't
lie.
and you still haven't seen me lie. I'm telling you the truth. I would be praising Fafa if he was actually doing something out there in the pitch. Trust me, I would be the first one eating crow if he was out there actually doing something on the pitch offensively. The fact of the matter is that these players playing out of position is just not working. George, obviously the big Junko fan he is. Junko shuts down the opposing best player. That's a fact. No, sir, that's not a fact. It's not. Junko's been beaten, man. He's. I'd rather him play a center back. He has the body built for a center back. But as a left back, man, he doesn't have the speed. He doesn't have the velocity to hang. He gets beat. He gets beat, and that's why the Dynamo are in the position they're in. So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, obviously, I wish Junko was working on left back and he was outright the best left back that we've ever had, but it's just not the case, man. It's not the case. And
So
Dynamo Insider says Fafa the yellow card merchant. Yeah, yellow cards, offsides. But he plays well. But he plays well on defense. But he plays well on defense. That's great. But he's an offensive player. I need him to be offensive.
yeah, but when you don't have a left back that can track back adequately enough, you have to have somebody that can,
That's
track
true.
back on the right or
But
the
put,
left, as
put
the
Fafa
case
on
may be.
left
And
back.
Zarek Valentine ain't it on the right side either.
Put Fafa on left back. Maybe that'll work.
I mean, he's played left back and he's played right back, so
There
that
you go.
you're not far off.
Maybe that's the solution we
But
need.
we don't have a left winger. We're already low on wingers. Why are you trying to take away our other winger? We can't afford
Maybe
to
we
do that either.
maybe we go with a single guy up front. That's it. Who knows? I don't
Yeah,
know.
so Sergio, this I know this question came up earlier. What coaches would you like to the Dynamo to look at? I think Gonzalo Pineda was probably one of our best opportunities, and holding on to Tab, not being willing to make that phone call to Pineda. I think if we're honest, I think Pineda would have been the perfect fit here. He would have came from Seattle, a system that obviously is working very, very well, and we've just stopped. So besides that, though, I wanted to hit on something that came up in chat that honestly it was absolutely 100% on point, and that was from the Christopher G. The fact that we're a man up versus RSL and still absolutely not a single player in the box. Look, I can't tell you the number of times I have yelled at my TV watching these away matches and even home matches when I can't make it to the stadium. I am yelling at my TV, asking the very question you're asking right now. Why can we not get players in the box when the ball is sent into the box? Look, we can do it in the first 15, 20 minutes of the match, but after our guys start getting tired in the 30th minute, there is nobody in that damn box able to even, there's nobody approaching the box. Look, there was an opportunity in the match versus Austin where Memo was trotting up to the box, very slowly, I might add, very late in the match, and there was a cross from, it wasn't Pasher, it was probably Junqua. No, it wasn't Junqua either. It was probably Valentine, and it came across just flashed across the box. The open goal, and Memo's nowhere to be. Like, there's not a single damn player in the box at all. And
The
and look, it might have even been Dorsey that actually served it in. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, there's nobody in the box. 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 This is important late in the match because if you're not trashing the box, if you're not crashing the box, if you're not trashing the goal, you are not going to score goals. You're especially on these damn set pieces, especially on your opportunities where you're sending the ball in. Look, we want to be a team that plays on the wings. We want to have that creativity. You have to have somebody in the box to finish that service.
the Welco Show 5, man, I'm sorry I don't know who you are, but appreciate you being on the chat. Says I like Dorsey on the wing. He's actually creative. It's a crazy thing. Obviously Dorsey is someone they just picked up from the scraps of Toronto FC. I think the
Another
club.
player that we've picked up that
Yeah.
was a backup elsewhere.
So I mean, obviously, look, the guy's getting an opportunity to play. He's gonna make the most of it. What he can. But I mean, honestly, his talent level is not nowhere near what we need. He's not. He's not gonna be. He's not that player that's gonna change the style and create things. And make things happen. He's just out there. He's just happy to be out there. So he's gonna give it his all because somebody's actually giving him minutes. But why do you think Toronto FC let him go for nothing? Why do you think anybody was able to pick him up? It just so happened to be the Dynamo that we picked him up because I think he was a youth player at one point, and Tab must have saw him across the hallway in Florida during their time over there coaching the youth teams. Obviously that's all they need. That's all they need to make him a Dynamo. Hey, if I saw you at the youth team camp, once someday in January, yeah, come on, you can join the Dynamo. That's all it seems to take. But it's a shame, man. Like I said, it's like you said, from going, during the Dynamo peak years when we were the best team as far as scoring goals from set pieces because we had players like Brad Davis and we had, players who weren't afraid to crash the box like Eddie Robinson and Bobby Boswell and players like that to go into having absolutely no goals on set pieces, really, in one of the worst teams for the last 5 years on set pieces. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. He also says I also miss Elise bad. Yeah, I mean, for as much as we crap on Elise's, some failures that he had, but I mean, but you can see the talent, the talent that he had was a lot different, and why all the teams focused their attention on Elise when they played the Dynamo and they didn't give a damn about nobody else because that guy was the guy. You know, I mean, I know Sean tells me sometimes, well, that's why they double team Fafa because it's net. Yeah, but at least was still able to make it happen. Fafa hasn't done
Hardly
anything.
ever. Hardly ever the last season he was here.
But
Hardly
yeah,
ever. He wasn't. He wasn't out there beating double teams. His ass was getting beat on double teams.
I mean, but he was out there scoring goals. He was making assists. He was doing cross. He was making the crosses. I mean, I'm not gonna say he was a world beater or anything like that either. But he was,
Yeah, we had a better forward too. We had a better striker who was here the whole season and not having to deal with COVID either. But I digress. Hey, point is a point.
I mean, like I said, we could always blame COVID for everything, but everybody else is going through COVID issues too.
No,
I
you're not
mean,
wrong. You're not wrong. But also look at the table. The table is very different this season than it's been in seasons past. Same thing with last season. It wasn't the same. It's not the same table. It's not the same MLS. What I'm trying to say though, what I want to get the point across is look. I agree, George. Maxey has been
yeah,
a
he's been
solid
solid. Yeah,
forward. He's been a great striker. I'm not arguing that. The problem is that Maxey is not going to be that guy that's going to finish off the cross 9 times out of 10. It's going to have to be your guy who's your shadow striker. It's going to have to be your attacking midfielder, your number 6 that should be moving higher up the pitch. They should be not your 6, sorry, your 10. Your 10 should be playing higher up. They should be moving into the attack, and they're just frankly they're not at this point. And that was the point I was trying to get across is look, even when Memo's been that guy, when he's been the guy, whether you want to say he's cutting in or he shifts to the center of midfield, whatever it is, I don't care where he's playing. I really don't. He's not the guy crashing the box. And if he's not going to crash into the box, then those services that we do get, which are far and few between anyways, those services that we do get, frankly, are always going to go wanting. And look, the thing that made Elise as good as he was his pace and his speed and his ability to get the ball across the box so that someone could try to get to the end of it. But that's not happening because there's nobody to get to the end of it. Look, Rudy's drawing double teams when he's on the pitch in the box. He has usually 1 to 2 of their best center backs on him, and that's not going to change until there's somebody on the wing that's gonna pull those players out. And look, I this was at the beginning of the season. Fafa was being double teamed consistently because the player on the right, Pasher, was an unknown, so they weren't playing him as heavy, and that's why Pasher was able to get the opportunities he was. But once Pasher left, there was nobody on that wing. Look, nobody's afraid of Griffin Dorsey running at them. He's not going to beat a player off the dribble. That guy runs like a gazelle, but he's not fast. He's not fast. He's not beating people over the top. Look, if you want to say Ariel Lassiter, he's not the few times we've seen him this season, he's not been beating players off the ball. He's not beating players one-on-one. He's not creating opportunities. So as much as we want to knock our existing wingers right now, the fact is we have nobody else at depth at wing. We have zero depth at wing. And yet that was supposed to be one of the strong points coming into the season. And the fact is you've played Fafa Pico as much as you've played Maxi or Rudy, who are your top minutes players outside of your center midfielders, who like Vera, who's played basically every match. But what I'm trying to get at is if you continue to play players out of position, like George says, Lassity is also being played out of position. Bahamich is being played out of position. Fafa Pico is being played out of position. Memo is being played out of position. Griffin Dorsey technically is being played out of position. Technically, if you want to go, Ian Hoffman is being played out of position. Look, all these players are being played out of position because Tab refuses to change and shift his approach and his tactics. And if you have a coach that is not going to change their tactics or their shifts or shift their tactics to match the players that are being brought in, it's never going to work. Look, it is always going to be a failure because eventually the player is going to get tired of playing out of position. It's not their comfort level, and not every player is just automatically gonna figure it out. They're gonna need help along the way, and we've not seen it. Dynamo Insider says this is why we could have gotten Jeremy Abobise, and he's right. We had an opportunity. He clearly went to another team. We had an opportunity to get a decent forward that would have been a great option for us up top, but instead we signed and traded for Corey Baird.
yeah, man. I mean, it's just like I said. It just goes back to Dynamo just picking up pieces that nobody else wants.
Yeah.
No, I understand one man's trash is another man's treasure, but shit, we're picking up trash and making even worse trash.
We're
So,
picking up trash. It's still trash.
yeah, so I mean,
I like the question though from Dewoko. Well, damn, who's being played in position? I think the only player that I could argue that's being played in position is Marco
Michael
Maric
Barry.
and Tim Parker. And that's it. Maybe Teenage Adibi, maybe Teenage Adibi, but that's about it. Like your three, those players can't be played at. Well, I can't. I shouldn't say can't because I've seen Minor be played at left back and right back. But it's very weird to see a center back playing as an outside back, and it's even more unusual to see a goalkeeper played anywhere else. So those three players I think are the only ones really being played in position, other than a Rudy who's being played as a striker, I suppose. But look, we've got our players that came in. We've got Corey Baird, who I think actually can be a great asset. I think once Rudy's back fully, I think once our other once Pasher comes back, I think once we can get Memo off the wing and as a kind of shadow striker or number nine, I think once we can get Karaskia really going, I think once we get all these things going, I think this team does have the capability to be a decent team. But there are so many pieces that are having to be played out of position because we refuse to shift our formation and our tactical approach. We refuse to play our best players in their best positions, with the exception of a Tyler Pasher or a Maxi Rudy or a Tim Parker. Everybody else is really being played out of position.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where now I'm looking at the chat, right, and I said obviously Dalwoko Show says I like Parker and Teenage together for what it's worth. And I think that pairing could work a lot, together. I mean, I think both of them have the physical attributes, with Parker being the sturdy, strong one, and Teenage being the physical with the agility and the velocity. So I think that partnership could work a lot. But the fact of the matter is, like, man, when I look at this team from top to bottom, man, I maybe want just 5 players back next season, if that. If to be honest, it's this team is in shambles, man. It seems like they're, for all this hype. I think somebody mentioned in the chat that Tab called Fafa a DP like signing. That's a
No, no,
joke.
no, no,
That's,
no. That
that's a,
was not the quote. The quote was that bringing in Tab at the time, signing Tab as coach,
okay.
was a DP level
Well,
signing.
well, whatever the case is, that's that for that to be even said now, it's a joke. And the fact of the matter is that this team needs to just have a complete rebuild. I mean, we're putting bandages over a crap team. You
Let
know,
me let me ask you a very pointed question.
Mhm.
If if the Dynamo, let's just say hypothetical, the Dynamo
Hypothetically,
wait until the offseason, they make their moves, they bring in a new coach, they bring in a new GM, and they dump 90% of this roster, keeping Marco Maric, keeping Tim Parker, keeping Teenage Davy, keeping Tyler Pasher, and keeping Maxi Rudy, and then dumping everybody else, and they bring in new players. Um, if all of that happens, and the players that they bring in are young players, they bring in Marcelo Palomino, they bring Eric McHugh in, and just go ahead and let him go out there, regardless of how much abuse he's going to take. If they do all that in the offseason, is that for you at this point, knowing full well that we still have about a half season to go, is that enough? Or do you feel that there's still more that this team needs to do? Do they need to sign that big star? Or are you okay with for this upcoming offseason if they just go full rebuild, they keep the big core pieces and they just bring in a bunch of younger players. They bring in the players that they already have that are young, that are ready to at least get opportunities, and they create that kind of environment of a bunch of young kids, knowing that they're going to be one or two pieces away, knowing full well that they're probably only vying for playoffs at that point.
before I answer the question, who do you? I guess my question to you be would who would be the players that for sure would want to keep here? Parker, obviously. Marriage, I guess. Hadibi, I guess because we haven't seen enough of him. Pasher, the Christopher G said mentions Derek Jones, which, yeah, I guess he's young enough and he has shown flashes. It's one of those things where, like, if we're talking about right now, I would, if I was gonna dump the coach right now and just say go recall Palomino, recall McHugh, and whoever the interim coach is, play those guys and see what we have for the future. I'm down for that. Honestly, I'm down for that. And then for the off season, everybody's available. To be honest, that's where I'm at now. Everybody's available. Let's see what these players can what kind of money these players can bring in if they're really good players and the Dynamo are just not using them right and playing them out of position. Let's see who else is willing to pay us money for these players that for some reason can't get it together. And if there's teams out there that are willing to pay, then show me how much, and let's make deals happen. I'm deal or no deal here, this moment. As far as like a new GM and coach coming in, obviously, if those guys' idea when they come in is to tear down the whole squad and make it a whole revamp and do a whole different formation with a whole all new faces and everybody getting new numbers and all that stuff, cool. I'm so down. Let's do it. Um, but like I said, it's hard to revamp an entire team over one off season or one transfer window. So obviously I know something like that is very highly unlikely. I think we would have to keep at least 50-60% of the team that's intact right now. But if that new coach or new GM actually does have Ted Bucks and real Ted Bucks behind them to the point where they can bring in good, talented players that up the level of the whole team, and then I'm fine with that too. You know, like we said, I don't think you and me are disagreeing here that the level of quality on this team is unacceptable. It's not where it needs to be. So obviously, you need to bring in players who are going to up that level. And those players, unfortunately, they cost money, man. They cost money. You know, Nicholas Lodero for Seattle didn't come in here for cheap. Oh, Rudias didn't come in for cheap. Reynoso for Minnesota United didn't come in cheap. Charles Gill for New England Revolution didn't come in cheap. Gustavo Bull didn't come in cheap. Alejandro Pozuelo didn't come in cheap. These players don't come in cheap, man. If we're really gonna take off the stigma of being a cheap club and being uh being top three as far as lowest payroll in the league, and let's do it, man. Let's bring in the talent that's necessary to take the Dynamo out of the gutter and bring them to the forefront where they belong. Because this franchise is a franchise that's one of the pillars of this league. We're only a handful of clubs that have multiple championships in this league, and that's something to be proud of. But unfortunately, for right now, the direction that the team is going, that seems so long ago, so long ago. It's an unfortunate thing.
Yeah, so Dewoko says, I mean, the USA team did that, and it creates interest in knowing that we are going to play the youth. Shows we have a sense of direction. I mean, I agree with you. I think if it, if the intent at this point, and you're looking at the team, if I'm Ted and I look at this team, I know I have to dump Tab and I have to dump Jordan. There's just no doubt to me. And if I'm doing that, if I know I'm doing that in the off season, I'm not waiting until the off season. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I don't care if I have to just bring in interim guys for now, whatever it is. Just letting them continue on is not making anybody better at this point. Um, so to Kenny's point, just sign one attacking DP. That's all I want for the offseason. One that can make other players better. That's the key for MLS.
Dude, I've been saying this forever. We need just sign one high quality number 10 that can create and score the ball. And trust me, the I don't think it'll make the Dynamo a championship caliber team, but for sure it would make them a playoff team. But the unfortunate thing here is that we don't play that formation where there's a high
Yep.
quality team that can be placed in this position. So
And Tab is never going to get away from playing the system that he's playing and the formation he's
exactly.
playing.
Exactly, and the fact of the matter is that shows one of the shortcomings of Tab as far as a coach. A coach is not willing to adapt to the talent that he has on his squad just to enforce them to play the type of football he wants to play because that's the only type of football he understands how to play. That's a really short-sighted coach, because if I have talented players that can do other things for me better than what I can put them under my scheme or system, and I'm gonna try to make it work. I'm gonna bring in coaches and I'm gonna bring in assistants that know differently than what I do. So that way, if something else happens, or we can put our minds together and create different opportunities and different formations for these players to maximize their skill level. You're already talking about players that don't have high level skills, and now you're minimalizing their skill level because you're playing them out of position. You're playing them in a formation that concentrates so much on defending and defending and defending, where you can't do nothing offensively. And then yet here as a fan base, we're expecting you to score goals so you can win games. And you see where the problem lies. This is the reason why we're not winning. This is the reason why we're not even tying anymore.
Yeah, I think no matter what happens, this offseason is going to see, definitively going to see at least a few players gone, and probably some valuable players in terms of what we spent to bring them in. And the question is, and to the point of, Christopher's point there, the fact we sold both Elise and Menotis and didn't really replace either of them, so disrespectful to the fans. I think that's a valuable point, to make as well. And I think it shows once again, look, Ted is coming in and he has said that he's willing to put forth the resources necessary to help the team succeed. At this point, I would argue that has not happened. Now, I've also said that we need to give Ted Segal this offseason because it really wasn't going to happen during the season. It wasn't going to happen mid-season. If we sell those players, or if we let those players go, we waive them or we get rid of them, whomever they may be. There's probably 4 to 5, if not more. If we do see those players leave and we replace them with nothing more than backups from across MLS, that is your indication and your answer that Ted is nothing different from what Gabriel Brenner was. He is just a new face, a new name, and a new voice.
Oh,
And oh, go
Sean,
ahead.
let me ask you something real quick. You said that obviously Ted said he would do whatever he needed financially to back the team, to improve the team and all that stuff, right? Which sounds great, awesome, right? But let's not kid ourselves. I'm sure Ted has been watching the Dynamo before they actually bought him. But he had a lot of time to watch this team play, and obviously he's watching them play now as the current owner, right? Why would I put money into a team and behind a coach that's showing me nothing, who's not willing to change his style up or anything? To be
You
honest
know what
with you.
the Yeah, I'm going to tell you the answer to that right now, and this is the answer that honestly scares me and concerns me the most because the timing of this is a little bit suspect. And then we go into, if we continue, and again, this is predicated purely on if we continue in the same path we're on. If we don't improve this offseason, if he doesn't open up the checkbook this offseason, I think it's a clear indicator of exactly this. And I'm ready to tell you what it is. It is a clear indicator to me that Ted Segal came in here to invest prior to and buy in prior to World Cup 2026. He's watching, literally it's an investment for him. He's watching the investment opportunity rise. He wants to get in at the lowest possible point that he can get in at, and then let the wave and momentum of World Cup 2026 carry him, carry the investment up high enough. Then he's going to sell after 2026. That means you have an owner, in my opinion, again, it all predicates on what happens this offseason, but you have an owner that is really tangibly not here for the long term. Regardless of what he may say on camera, I don't feel like Ted Segal, and I've said this to multiple people. I don't feel like Ted Segal is a long-term owner for this club. If he is a long-term owner for this club, we will see that change in the offseason very clearly in how the Dynamo approach the offseason. We get rid of those players that are weighing us down. We bring in better players, not just backups from across MLS. We fire and get rid of Matt Jordan. We let Tab see the door. We bring in a world-renowned, or at least a U.S.-renowned, MLS-renowned coach. We bring in somebody that is going to carry clout and regard in the business as our coach. We bring in somebody that is known for, or someone at the very least who's an assistant GM in a position on a club, such as a Gonzalo Pineda in terms of the backup coach there. But we bring in an assistant GM or a GM who's already a proven GM from a team that clearly is doing it the right way. We can't afford to swing and miss with Ted at the helm at this point, and otherwise there's literally going to be no fan base left.
It's funny. Somebody mentioned on the chat, obviously, laughingly, that Dynamo should have signed Messi. Um, if Ted went and signed Messi, I'm sure Tab would have tried to pay Messi as a six. That's where I'm at right now. But
Oh man, you are so right. Ooh, I didn't even consider that.
it's one of those things where yeah, Ted can come out here and look, I'm gonna be optimistic about Ted, right? Obviously I understand where you're coming from, and all this stuff, and I'm hoping that that's not the case, but I can see why that would be the case as well, right? As an ownership, but being optimistic, I want to be optimistic about the new ownership. Um, if Ted came in here and just spent his ass off during this summer transfer window and still got the same results. I mean, think about it. As an owner who literally you're putting your money on the line to see the exact same results. Now you're putting yourself behind the eight ball because now you're like, man, I could have had that money with somebody else who came in with fresher ideas and used that for the winter window. You know, um, unfortunately, this is what it is, man. Ab is limited as a coach. His foresight is not what we thought it was. Obviously we had a lot of praise for him and a lot of high expectations for what he brought because of his pedigree, but obviously he's falling way short. I think I saw somewhere on Twitter where out of all the coaches who've coached at least 40 games, he's the lowest. He's had the lowest amount of wins and lowest amount of points garnered in his first 40 wins as a coach, which is sad, dude. Owen Coyle is running circles over you.
Yep.
Owen freaking Coyle. You know, it's a shame, and I don't blame Ted for not spending any money this summer. Obviously, the teenage Hadabi thing was already in process before Ted actually became owner. So I think he just kind of, hey, okay, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna make this fine, I'm gonna finalize this, and we're gonna go ahead with that. I mean, that's the only reason why I think the teenage Hadabi thing happened. But great, it happened. Hopefully, he's here for the future, and hopefully, he's a great center back for us for many years to come. But like you said, I think this offseason is going to speak volumes. The fact of the matter is, I don't expect to see Matt Jordan here in Houston, whether he's in Cincinnati or Nova Scotia. It doesn't matter to me as long as he's not in Houston.
No,
Tab,
that was a good one.
tab.
Can we send him to Chicken NFC as a favor for sending
Chicken,
us Teenage
Chicken
DB?
NFC, Chicken NFC is looking for a new general manager. Matt Jordan, Lincoln. But yeah, man, Tab. We appreciate what you thought you were able to do, but unfortunately, you fell way short. See you when we see you.
I really feel like Tab needed an assistant coach position within MLS before he became a full-time coach.
And I think he needed a assistant coach not only with that experience, but somebody who sees the pitch a little bit differently than what he does. You know,
I thought
because
I
like
thought I thought that Pablo Mastroeni last year was a great hire by him as an assistant coach, and I think that's why the team played as good as they did at times because of having Pablo Mastroeni, who
Mhm.
understood the ins and outs of MLS. And it's a shame that Pablo went to Austin FC. It would have been much better if he stayed here for everybody involved.
Yeah, for sure. But it is what it is. And it just didn't work out. Sometimes you hire a coach with high expectations, it just doesn't work out, and this is an unfortunate situation for Tab. Like I said, I have nothing bad about the guy. I think he's been very professional, very cordial. Obviously, he's a lot nicer and has allowed a lot more access than what Wilmer did prior. But Wilmer, for as much as we disliked him, took us to the playoffs, won an open cup. So, I mean, and Tab has gotten nowhere near that. Hasn't sniffed anything close to that. So
So I'm gonna harken back to some stuff that Kenny said earlier. One thing about MLS that I feel is lost on people that say spend more money, like that's an easy thing just to do. 27 of your players, generally speaking, are on a hard cap, so it's about the other three where investment makes the difference. That's your DPS, basically your young DPS or otherwise, and you need them to be positive influences on your regular players. And at this point, there's no doubt Darwin Quintero has not been a positive influence on our regular players. There's no doubt that Teenage Adibi has not had enough time to be a positive impact on our players. There's no doubt that Karaskia has not had enough time to be a positive impact on our players. Following that up, another question that was asked: do we see Matt Jordan out after this year? And this is not the question I care to answer because we already answered it. But and if not, and somehow Matt Jordan gets a contract extension, oh God, I think I'm about to throw up. What would that mean for the club? Mark, let me ask you this question: if Matt Jordan somehow escapes with a contract extension, oh God, like my stomach literally hurts thinking about that. If Matt Jordan gets a contract extension, even for just a single season into 2022, what does that do to this team?
Man,
It's
you
time
know,
for the
you,
sad fox. Where's my sad fox? Where's my angry fox?
no,
It's
no, no,
time
no,
for
no,
him.
no, no. This is pissed off Fox. Look, guys. One day, I want to show this Fox, happy Fox. But right now, this Fox right here looks like he's gonna stay for a while. You know, um, dude, I, I couldn't even fathom that happening. But if somehow, some way, this happens, dude, you know, I'm a supporter, right? I'm a Dynamo supporter. You know, I'm obviously part of a supporter group. You know, along with you, Sean. You know, and other people along with this chat. You know, whether it's Bataillon, TA, Surge, Bandera Negra, whatever. You know, supporters are supposed to be are held to a different standard where through thick and thin, you stand behind the club. You know, you support your club and all that good stuff. And I wholeheartedly believe that as a supporter, not just of the Dynamo, but of other clubs around the world, right? And unfortunately, as a supporter and as a fan, you have to kind of ride the waves, especially when we're crashing and drowning, the way we are now. We have to, ride those waves. And if something like that were to happen, man, it's just a slap in the face. Now, what I would recommend as a supporter of this club, if something like that were to happen, is to really, really have other supporters unite and really have their voices heard. Really has their voices heard to management, to front office, and to everybody that's willing to listen, to let them know that we're not satisfied with this, we're not happy with this, we're not content with being this, we're not content with being the sorriest team in MLS. To be honest, even though that might be a little harsh, that's the way I feel, and especially that's the way I'll feel if Matt Jones is here again for another season. Um, and that's just the fact of the matter. I mean, I would recommend, hey, boycotting the fire sales, boycotting the open practices, boycotting going to matches, boycotting wherever that money. If they're not willing to spend the money, you know what? We're not willing to spend the money. I can watch and support the Dynamo at home on TV. Easy.
I mean, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, and that's gonna surprise some people because obviously I've been very anti any sort of visual movement, so to speak, from the supporters or coordinated supporters action, if you will, outside of just hey, don't renew your season tickets. But I think and again, this is me saying, if something is to happen, if Jordan is retained, is brought back for another season, um, then yeah, I think the supporters need to organize something. I do think there needs to be a message sent. Look, Ted is not going to get the message unless the message is sent, and I know that he understands that right now this is unacceptable. The form of the team is unacceptable, and again, we have to wait really probably until the offseason to really see his mark on the team and what changes are made and those sorts of things. But to the question that was asked, if no change is made, if we continue in the same direction we are continuing in, then yeah, we absolutely have to pull a West Ham. We have to pull a Sunderland. We have to pull a, there's plenty of other teams that their fans have done it. We have to make a statement. Man United fans just did it earlier this year. We have to make a statement, to our owner that this is unacceptable. This is going to continue to be unacceptable. And if you're not going to
No,
change what is going on as owner of the organization with the power to do so, then we are going to make a public demonstration to show you that we are not pleased and we are not happy.
George says the fire sale is charity though. That's fine. I can donate money or a check to the charity of my cause. I don't have to buy any merch. I don't have to buy anything from the Dynamo. I can write a check. I can hand cash over to whichever charitable cause it needs to go to. But
George says something else. He says, if no supporter group were to show up, then I'll make it my mission to let the networks know. Here's the thing: in Houston specifically, in that stadium, if there's no supporters that have shown up, if that supporter section is completely empty and there's no band, there's no music, there's no chanting, it is noticeable not just on the broadcast, it is noticeable, period, in the stadium. It is
Sure.
going to send a resounding message. Now, my hope is we don't have to get to that point. But what I am saying is, I am not opposed to getting to that point if Matt Jordan is retained for another year. This is my Matt Jordan is no longer an acceptable option at general manager. That is, I have clearly delineated that as a line we need to not cross.
Oh, dude, dude, the second, like I said, I wholeheartedly think that that's not gonna happen. But in the 0.001% chance that it does, dude, I'm wholeheartedly talking to everybody that I know who supports the Dynamo, especially you guys here on the chat, whatever. And we're uniting somehow, some way, and we're not, and we're gonna show, and we're gonna talk, and we're gonna make sure that these people listen, hear us, and understand that this is not acceptable. And if they're trying to make money off of us because we're diehards, then they're gonna have to find another way to make their money. And simple.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean but that was a good question, Dynamo Insider. Actually, it wasn't Dynamo Insider who asked that. Yes, it was Dynamo Insider. Thank you for asking that question. I'm glad you asked it. It gave us an opportunity to kind of go on that tangent. Look, there's a lot of people that say, I think it's probably a little early to jump off the Tab train. I think there's people who are against Tab. There's people who are for Tab. I am again. I'm anti-Tab at this point. I just think the system's not working. It's clear that regardless of the players that have been brought in, he's not changed enough of the system to really
I
empower
mean,
these players to succeed.
Sean, you can have Conte, Golo Conte, and you can have Jordan Henderson as your two sixes in this Dynamo team, and they're not going to produce what they're producing for their respective teams right now because
I'm
they're
gonna
being because
Yeah,
they're
I'm going to
being
take it a
run.
step farther because Conte would actually make sense in this team because you have to remember where he
Oh
plays.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The player that I would
The
the
man
player
has
that
very
I would
long.
say, yeah, if you brought in a player from the Premier League that everybody would expect to succeed, and then you put him out of position, the player would have to be Jack Grealish. Look, if you brought in Grealish and you played him as a six, there's no way that he's going to have the impact that he had in the Premier League because he doesn't play that position. He is best as an attacking midfielder. And look, Man City with Pep Guardiola know exactly what they're doing in signing Jack Grealish. And trust me, he's not going to be played as a deep lying playmaker. He's absolutely going to be playing higher up the pitch. I only went on that. I'm glad you brought it up, but I'm only going on that tangent because it's important to know that Tab has been unwilling to make changes to the tactics. I mean, he's played with a five back formation a couple of times, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the tactical approach in the middle of the field and in the attack. He has sacrificed attack in order to protect his defense and protect his goal, and even that is not successful at this point. It's not succeeding anymore. And if that's not succeeding, then why are we sacrificing the attack? If we're going to sacrifice the attack for defense, I expect to win matches 1-0. If we are sacrificing defense for offense, then I want to go out there and win 5-6 or 4-3, whatever it is. I want to go win. But the fact is whatever we have sacrificed, it has been a significant negative, and we've not been able to have enough replacement and replenishment in the front or in the back, wherever we sacrifice. We've not been able to have the depth in those areas to actually succeed. If we don't have the depth in those areas to succeed, then Tab's tactics are never going to work.
Yeah, I mean, but I like to see Tab back for another year. Honestly, no. I mean, like I've mentioned it a couple times already on the program, and I'm gonna keep beating it up. When you have a coach who's not willing to move from what they know and put the players in the position that best suits those players' talent and skill level, then you have a problem. You know, we all said the offseason, hey, let's wait until Tab brings in his own guys. Wait till he brings in his own guys. Then this team will shoulder. This team will work like a working train, and everything will be fine and dandy, and it hasn't. Tab has brought in his guys, but I mean, these guys are being worn out. You know, for as much as we celebrated the Dynamo taking Joe Corona away from Austin FC the way they did, at this point, I'm like, dude, Austin FC, you could have had Corona, to be honest. I mean, for as much hoopla that was heard when he finally signed Marcelo Palomino last season because he was going to be one of those players that came out from the academy and he was a Houston homegrown whatever and all that stuff. Dude, we sent him away. We sent him away. Why? Because his natural position is a 10, and like we mentioned before, we don't have a 10 in this formation. We don't have a 10 in this team. So what good is having a good up and coming youthful player like Palomino who plays at 10 if that position isn't available in the squad?
Yeah, I like what C. Sanford said in chat. I originally thought Tab was going to focus on player development, but instead he's plugging holes with players out of position. Yeah, it feels like he's trying to force a square peg into a round hole, trying to make it work versus letting it work with the resources that he has at his exposure. And that is something that was a knock on him when he was the U.S. youth national team coach for the men, the U20s and below, is that, he was very consistent with how he wanted the team to play, and he would play players out of position, and sometimes it would get his teams in trouble. And I look at the quality of talent that is in the U.S. men's national team right now, the team that just beat Mexico for the Gold Cup. And there is plenty of talent in that team, and much of it came from MLS. And if that's the case, there's not a single Dynamo player on that roster, and not a
Nobody
single
even
Dynamo
close.
player on that. Oh, go
Nobody
ahead.
even close. Nobody even close. I mean,
And yet
yeah,
Palomino,
well,
would have been able to contend if he'd had a chance to play,
yeah, and I mean
in my opinion.
they put Memo on that 30 player list. I mean, when I saw his name
That
on there,
was a joke. That
it was
was a flippin'
it was
joke.
a
I knew
complete
I There were
dude.
people that were saying, "Oh yeah, that's a great honor," and I'm like, "Dude, there is no way he's making that 23."
That was a complete joke, dude.
Yeah, no.
Memo wouldn't even made it as water boy in that squad. To be honest, let's be real, man. I
I'm
mean,
going to say this though: if he had gone, it would have been the best thing for his career. Not because he would have played better, or he would have had a chance on the team.
he
Nothing
would have
like that.
saw
He would
he
have
would
learned how to play as a champion.
he would have saw what a winning mentality and what a winning culture looks like. You know,
Yeah,
for as much as I think a lot of people crapped on the United States men's national team hiring Berhalter over Tata Martino. At the end of the day, obviously the U.S. Federation is laughing at everybody who thought Tata was the better coach over Berhalter, because obviously he's showing on the pitch not only with the championships that he won, but with these players, not only the European based players, but with the domestically placed players here and the MLS players. He's doing it all. I mean, that's a coach showing you how to play with whatever he has on hand. You know, he that Gold Cup. Yeah, he could have easily won that Gold Cup if he had Pulisic and Reyna and Tyler Adams and all this stuff. But no, he didn't have that. He had he had freaking Christian Rodon, um, uh, you know, and all the other MLS guys. I can't think of it at the top of my head right now. But yeah, but you know what? But he didn't play the same formation. He didn't play those guys the same type of way. He used he knew he understood what he had as a player, as player personnel, and he put those guys in the best place to best maximize their skill level and set, and that's why they won that U.S. Gold Cup.
So I want to talk, CONCACAF Gold Cup. Let's get it right. It's not just U.S.
No, yeah, I'm
Uh,
sorry, U.S. Gold Cup.
you're good. I mean, I know we won, so we can't put our name on it and our stamp on it, but that's going a bit too far. But Christopher G, I like this. Those U.S. players would run through a brick wall for Greg Berhalter. George replies, "Yeah, they definitely would. Hungry players." Here's the thing: when you have a coach as players, if you have a coach that you're willing to do absolutely anything for, then yeah, that coach can play you out of position because you're still going to continue to run. You're going to continue to give everything. We have seen it on the pitch. These players are not giving everything they have in every match. They're just not. They're going to say, "Yeah, I'm giving everything 110%. I'm sweating through my bones." They're going to collapse on the pitch at the end of matches. But the fact is, soccer is as much a mental game and a mental sport as it is a physical sport. Look, these players, there's no doubt that they can play a full 90, even playing the high press. Don't get me wrong. Even with these MLS players and the fitness that they have. The problem is they don't have the mentality. We talked about this before. We don't have leadership and we don't have mentality. They don't have the mentality to go run through that damn brick wall. Tab could tell them, "Hey, we need to open that door," and they would just ignore him and continue walking wherever they're going. They don't pay attention to Tab. Tab has lost this locker room. He's lost these players. It's clear to see. I don't know if it started with Darwin Quintero or if that's just a symptom of a bigger systemic issue. But the fact is these players don't respect Tab anymore. They don't want to play for Tab anymore, and it's only going to get worse if Tab continues to stay here. And look, I'm not saying go fire Tab tomorrow, but what I'm saying is you got to make sure Tab understands he's not sticking around at the end of the season. you've got to start working towards that moment where he is gone. And the sooner you do it, the better. Don't get me wrong.
Oh no, no. Like I said, nothing against the guy, but if they lose to Colorado Rapids this Saturday, and Ted says, thank you for everything you've done, we'll see you when we see you. I'm not mad. I wouldn't be mad. Bring in whatever interim coach they're gonna put in and start playing the youth. I mean, like I said, this season, these players in particular, they haven't showed me that they have the capabilities to up their level or play together as a unit and to really challenge for a playoff spot. And then throw on top the fact that they're going to lose their quote unquote best player for 6 to 8 weeks in that time period. Yeah, man, it looks like a lost cause for the Dynamo this season, which absolutely sucks because I think coming in we had a whole lot of expectations of maybe making it to the playoffs this season.
Yeah, I mean it's a shame. We're in a position that none of us wanted to be in at the end of last season, and none of us expected to be in at the end of last season. There were plenty of positives to build upon. I think the overhaul and the way that they went about it, unfortunately, like I said, you can't afford to sacrifice one side of the pitch for the other side of the pitch. You just can't. It's going to end up being the same thing, just on the other side. You're going to continue to concede goals because you can't possess the ball long enough to actually force the opposition back into their own defensive third. You aren't able to do that for a full 90 minutes. Your players are tired halfway through a match or 50 minutes through a match. There was a point in the middle of that match against Austin where Teenage Davy and Derek Jones, who had just come on, he didn't even play the full match, was bent over huffing air, and they'd only been playing for like 50 minutes at that point. And I'm going, how are these players even going to make it 90, let alone 50?
Yeah. It's crazy, man. I mean, like I said, I feel like we're just beating a dead horse over and over again, saying the same thing just differently, time and time and again. But I mean, it is what it is. It's a frustrating place to be in as a fan, as a supporter, and it sucks, man. It sucks because think about it. I think somebody mentioned it on Twitter sometime during the Austin FC game or after it, because obviously we keep up with that kind of stuff or whatever. That somebody said that everybody who went as a supporter to the Austin FC game, that the Dynamo front office should refund their travels and tickets, things of that nature. Which it's funny, wholeheartedly, whatever, this and that, and but sometimes it feels that way, dude. Like I mean, people actually, you know, invest their money to make these trips up there. I mean, I know, I know that trip for me up there wasn't nothing cheap, you know. Um, and for everybody else who else was up there, it wasn't nothing. Just hey, a quick trip to Austin and come back. No, man, we went up there, we spent a little money, and we had a good time. But I mean, it would have been nice if we would have had the club worthy of winning, to go up there and really make some noise and really be, out there having a blast. But that wasn't the case. Shoot, the next morning, I had to go sit my ass in a sauna for half an hour just to go sweat out the smell of losing. So
Yeah, it was definitely strong on y'all. I could smell it all the way here in Houston. It was
it
pretty
was.
bad. Y'all losers taking that trip. No, I'm just kidding. No, there's a point here that I like from Dewako. Yet again, dude's dropping absolute dimes. I like Pasher, but he should not be our top guy. Like no chance.
Oh, of course, obviously. But
That's the thing. That's the thing right there, though. He says it, and it's such a humorous statement to make, but he's got an absolute point that I think we tend to forget about, which is we love to laud how great Pasher has been. Tyler Pasher's our best player. He's a guy coming in from the USL who has absolutely performed up
it was
to
a great
and
story.
way beyond expectation. We had low expectations for him coming in, didn't know what he was going to bring, and the dude brought everything and more. But he was a USL player. The fact that a guy coming in as a USL player in his first season, not only does he beat out every other winger with the exception of Fafa Pico, and apparently Memo occasionally, but the fact that Pasher beat out all these other backup wingers, the fact that Pasher was the best player and he's coming out of USL and never played for our club before, the fact that this is a player who absolutely dominates on his side of the pitch. Look, it doesn't matter if he's single teamed as with defenders or double teamed or triple team. I don't care. That's not my point. But what I'm saying is it's important that we emphasize this. If he's our best player, that means that absolutely without a doubt, we have failed to acquire the quality of talent that is necessary to be competitive in MLS over the course of an entire MLS season. We
I think
have. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I say, and think about it. I mean, like I said, with all a mad respect to Tyler Pasher, because he was given an opportunity and he's taken the opportunity by the horns. And like I said, unfortunately for him, he's had a couple of injuries, and he had to call up to Canada to obviously as well, which is good for him. But Tyler Pasher is not starting for Seattle Sounders. Tyler Pasher isn't starting for Columbus Crew. Tyler Pasher is not starting for New England Revolution. Tyler Pasher is not starting for any top level club in MLS. You know, like I said, he's a great story here in Houston locally because we have nothing to cheer about. That's the unfortunate thing about it. That's why Tyler Pasher is he's a folk hero. He's gonna be a cult hero for Dynamo because he's gonna be one of those players that we loved during the hard time of in the history of this club. He'll be loved, and that's great for him personally as a player because he puts his heart and soul into that pitch when he goes out there. He gives it his all, and we see that, and we applaud him for that, and we thank him for that because not all players do that, especially when they're playing for a sucky ass team like the Dynamo are currently. Um, but if we're being realistic here and we're being fair to ourselves and honest to ourselves, Tyler Pasher at most is a bench player for top notch MLS clubs, if that.
I I would argue there are for top notch, yes, top notch MLS clubs. I would definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah,
But at the same time, Pasher has proven this season to be good enough to at least vie for those opportunities. I think there are clubs that would take him. I think there are top level clubs that would take him out on their wing. I don't think there's any question of that. Uh, but
as a bench
oh
player.
my throat just closed up on me.
Yeah, but and while you drink some water, but like I said, I made my point. Yeah, any club in MLS would take him as a bench player, especially
Yeah.
the top clubs, because I mean, this guy shows the heart. He shows that he's willing out there and sacrifice his body to make the play. And that's all you want from a player,
Look,
realistically.
look.
And
I'm gonna piggyback on that, and I think you'll like this. I'm gonna piggyback on that. That man is willing to give everything he has to do what he needs to do in his position. There is not another player on this roster today that is the same way. There is no other player. And the fact that a kid coming out of USL is giving you that level of effort tells you everything you need to know about how the Dynamo are faring right now. It tells you everything you need to know about where a lot of these true issues lie. Look, it's not just the GM, it's not just the coach, it's not just the tactics. The players have absolutely unequivocally given up. They have absolutely phoned it in. There is not a player on this roster outside of Tyler Pasher that is giving as much as Tyler Pasher gives match in and match out.
yeah, and that's absolutely true. And like I said, that's why Tyler Pasher for however long he's here with the Dynamo, he'll be a cult hero for us. One of those, like how Tommy McNamara was for New York FC. Everybody they hated the fact that he left or whatever, but but when we got Tommy Mac, we were so ready to give him back. But the fact of the matter is, it's an unfortunate thing that a player like that who's willing to play with so much heart and determination has to play in such a crappy team like he does currently. Um, no, and hopefully he stays long enough to the point where he gets to see the turnaround. He gets to see the Dynamo being playoff contenders and maybe championship contenders one day. But who knows? We'll see. But but I have nothing but respect for Tyler Pasher.
Look, if half of these guys gave the same effort as Tyler Pasher, I don't think there's any question that this club would be in a different position than they're in right now. Not only in the table, not only in MLS, but I think with the fan base. Look, we as fans, we look and we watch and we see all of these things that happen. We get a glimpse into what these players are doing on the pitch. We get a glimpse into the coach's tactics and approach to everything on the pitch. But at the end of the day, all of these things have to come together, and not a single one seems to be clicking outside of Tyler Pasher. It
You
does
know,
make me wonder. Oh, go ahead.
You know what it might be? I think Houston soccer teams just have good luck with Canadians. Maybe that's what it is.
We always have had great success with Canadians. You're not wrong. Um, but the thing is, what I was trying to get to. Thanks for interrupting my flow.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I get it. I get it. But all of these things have to come together to make this happen. All of these things have to succeed in order for the club to be fully successful. The one thing that has always been a struggle for this club is getting the supporters involved, getting them loud, getting them to be absolutely strong in specifically in the last like decade is what I'm really talking about. Once the team started to struggle, that support dwindled tremendously. If we look at the level of support right now, if you look at these supporters groups that have come into Hustletown, like the Surge, Bandera Negra, you still have your existing EB, and then TA, of course, holding it down where they do. But you have these four groups. They're trying to do everything that they can. They're traveling strong. How many did we have at that Austin FC match? Enough to be strong enough to out sing and out chant the Austin FC supporters that were being paid to be there. All of these things, the supporters are doing their part. And if they're doing their part, not getting paid, they're doing their part because they love and are passionate about the club. It is time for the players to be passionate about the club. It is time for the coach to show he is passionate about the club. It is time for the GM to be just as passionate about the club as the supporters are. And it is time, and hopefully Ted is that guy, that he is as passionate about this club and not an investment as the supporters are, as we are, as some of these players have shown to be in a Tyler Pasher. Look, he needs to hold it down as strong as we are in generation holding it down. Thanks, guys, and have a great week.